turn your attention, and really for the reason that we're here, is to showcase our talent and have our returning students talk about their experiences, and I'll introduce them shortly. We have 3 interns. We have Hannah Bedell, who went to Lion Rock in Hong Kong, Timothy Sondolini, who went to Frontier Centre for Public Policy in Western Canada, and Tom Wyatt, who was at Freedom Works in Washington, D.C. in the US. Following these presentations, I'm going to haul the interns back and we're going to have a brief Q&A, and then we're going to have Ron, as ever, give us some final words of wisdom, guidance, and perhaps some poetry, depending on the So for now, I'd like to welcome Hannah to the podium to talk about her experience in Hong Kong.
Good evening, Mr. Hannahs, members of the Mancal Foundation Board and distinguished guests. Late last year, I was given the incredible opportunity to intern on behalf of the Mancal Foundation at one of Hong Kong's leading think tanks, the Lion Rock Institute, for 6 weeks over the university holidays. From the moment I stepped off the plane and onto one of Hong Kong's remarkably efficient MTR trains, I was instantly captivated by the city and the insatiable collective drive of its people. For a population of over 7 million crowded into a landmass smaller than the ACT, it completely overwhelmed me to see how quickly everything, from getting a morning coffee to catching a taxi, was done with absolute precision. As a member of the office told me, Hong Kong is a land of people with no fear and no patience. I began work at the Lion Rock office the next day, having successfully navigated my way through the bustles of the morning office crowd and into the heart of the CBD. As an intern, my main role was to help with the development and publication of the Institute's quarterly journal, as it was in the process of being revamped and renamed, quite suitably, to capitalism.hk. At the Institute, I was also given the opportunity to attend meetings with members of the Legislative Council and spent a lot of my time researching and writing pieces on the hotly debated Competition Law Bill and some of the problems facing homeowners of heritage-worthy properties. My article on competition law looked into Australia's history with the law, as well as the potential problems, such as significant compliance costs and an unstable business environment faced by business owners and consumers should the bill be passed in Hong Kong. The Lion Rock Institute's work was crucial in helping to delay the bill from being passed in its current form, and they continue to advocate against the poorly drafted legislation as talks continue in the government. During my downtime, I was fortunate to be taken around by a colleague from work to some of Hong Kong's greatest local areas and sites. I visited the island's tallest and most famous mountain, the Peak, as well as some amazing local restaurants and areas past Kowloon that allowed me to see the true traditional local culture. I was also taken to some interesting eateries and wet markets, an experience I was told necessary to truly experience life as a Hong Konger. Working with some of the most passionate free market thinkers in the freest economy in the world was something that I had never dreamed possible during my degree. Each day was an opportunity to learn something new, not only about the values that the people behind the Lion Rock Institute stand for, but the principles and values that I stand for as a person as well. Surprisingly, the greatest challenge I found during my internship was to write and discuss pieces creatively, rather than focusing on forming a model answer or a carefully crafted response I thought was expected. Learning to think for myself and away from the relatively rigid methods taught at university was difficult, and I soon realised how students today, including myself, aren't given enough opportunity to be expressive and honest in their writings. I would like to sincerely thank Ron Manners and the Mancal Foundation for such an incredible opportunity and for the continuous support I received during my internship. My research and writing skills have improved enormously, and the ability to relate my theoretical studies to pressing issues in real time was something that was so thoroughly rewarding. Completing an international internship is something that I would wholeheartedly recommend to all students with an interest in the global economy and its operations. Being able to live and immerse yourself in a different culture truly is the best way to learn and understand a country and its people. My experience in Hong Kong was unforgettable, and I've gained skills, memories and friends that I know will last a lifetime. Thank you.
Thanks, Hannah. I'd now like to welcome Tim, who will talk about his experience in the northern climes of very cold Canada.
Members of the Mancal Foundation Board, distinguished guests. My name is Timothy Sondolini, and earlier this year I was given the great pleasure of interning at the Frontier Centre for Public Policy. The Frontier Centre is the Canadian equivalent of our Manco. It's based in Winnipeg, in the middle of the Canadian prairies and basically the heart of Canada. To the locals, Winnipeg is known as Winterpeg for very good reason. The place is freezing. The Canadian prairies stretch for 4,000 kilometres, and when the air drifts across from the Pacific, it basically picks up and doesn't stop until it hits Winnipeg. I learned to really dislike the idea of the wind chill. One day it was 35 and I was walking to work and my front was completely warm, but my back was frozen solid. I would walk to work most days, and that acted as a pivot point. It gave me time to digest the things I learnt and time to prepare myself for the days ahead. The problem with that is I soon learned trudging through the snow was particularly bad, but apparently I had a mild winter. I don't know what they were talking about, but there was a day where it was 4 degrees and people were wearing shirts and shorts. I was astonished. The problem is, when it gets to that temperature, all the snow melts. So when you have 5 foot of snow and it melts, it pools everywhere. But the problem is the ground's still frozen solid. It's in its permafrost cycle, so it doesn't have anywhere to drain. So my walks to work basically involved me collecting a series of bruises across a 15-minute journey. The first week, I no doubt caused much amusement to the people driving past, as they watched some poor tourists tottle over constantly. I quickly learnt that you don't stride, you don't make big moves, you kind of develop an awkward shuffle. And it took me, a 15-minute walk took me close to 20 minutes. But I got there in the end. And those kind of anecdotes define my time. It's the kind of falling over or kind of getting to work and going, what the heck was that? A scarf froze to my face when it was minus 35. One of my eyelids froze shut when it was minus 25. And I walked into the office beaming. And all the girls and the secretary there, they were astonished. This strange Australian was excited that he was frozen solid. Basically, my work at the Frontier Centre was monitored by Mr. Ben Eisen. The Frontier Centre is unusual in that it's actually a series of analysts and they all Skype in. So he gave me my set work. I acted as his offsider. Any ideas he really wanted to share, he would bounce them off me. I would write a couple of briefs. I'd do a bit of research for him. My 2 major pieces one was a defence of American and basically the developed world's level of consumption. There was a lot of blog posts criticising the developed world for consuming too much and just consuming too much. And basically my point was to show that that might be the case, but we also produce most of the world's wealth, so get off our backs. The next part was something that gave me a chance to really compare in my life in Western Australia and really made me think about my experience. I was looking at the competition reforms in the 1970s, 80s and early 90s and trying to apply them and see whether they were applicable to a Canadian situation. Canada has never had that need to become a more efficient country that we've had. Mr. Peter Hall, the president of the Frontier Centre, quite accurately put it that they have the US across the border, and if it wasn't for them, Canada would be a basket case. We never had that chance, so we had to adapt. And it was interesting to note, particularly in Manitoba, where Winnipeg is the capital city, the government's involved in a lot more of that. They haven't become efficient. And it's interesting to note that I found it a very dreary town. It was freezing cold, but you just put on a jacket and you get on with your life. But the people, they lacked a certain energy. Part of my travels part of my time at the Frontier Centre involved me travelling all across the Canadian prairies. I went to Saskatchewan and to a town called Regina, where I spent a week and a half. And they've recently liberalised and they've recently begun a mining boom. And the energy of that town just took me aback. I've never seen so many people so eager. I developed the bartenders, are the best way of telling if a town's going well. Manitoba, the bartenders are a little dreary, but the bartenders in Saskatchewan are beaming and making money hand over fist. I also managed to go to Calgary for a week, which was really enlightening. I'm sure many of you heard Calgary is basically the equivalent of Perth, but in a colder climate, a freezing cold climate. And that's really what it was. It was uncanny. I felt like I was home, except I was wearing a jacket that I couldn't buy in Perth. At the conclusion of my time in Canada, I took a quick trip across down to Washington, DC, where I attended the International Students for Liberty conference. That was an experience in itself. I've worked with political groups in Australia. I've kind of engaged with groups of kids here, but I've never seen such a young crowd so fervently and passionate about the ideas of liberty. It was astounding. I think I probably run a little far over time, so I'm going to wrap it up. But before I do, I just wanted to thank the Mankel Foundation. So from the bottom of my heart, I'm still digesting my experience in my internship. I still don't quite know what happened to me. But it was brilliant, and I know that it's going to shape my life. So I would like to extend a thanks to the Mankel Foundation, and more personally to Ron, Andrew, Felicity and Emma for making it all possible. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tim, for those very kind words. Now, our final intern for tonight is Tom White. Tom was at FreedomWorks in the US, and his internship was a bit more in the active and in the trenches, as opposed to the more research-focused projects of Hannah and Tim. So I'd now like to welcome Tom to give us a snapshot of working in Washington in the heart of where all things happen, and give a quick overview of that in 3 minutes. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Andrew. I don't have extensive notes or anything, so I'm going to wing it, and I'll probably seem thoroughly unimpressive by comparison to the last two wonderful presenters. But as Andrew mentioned, I was with FreedomWorks in Washington. Mancal traditionally, I think I'm right in saying, is focused on sending students to think tanks overseas. So it's all about formulating ideas. It's all about allowing students to travel overseas, expose them to those ideas, have them come back and contribute to the public policy debate in Australia. My internship was focused on communicating those ideas. I'll be upfront, I'm a political person, so my mission in Washington was to learn from the United States political system, which of course is extremely rich, and to learn from some of their online communication methods so that I can come back to Perth and to Australia and to share those methods with some political activists in Perth and across the country so that we can forward and promote all of the ideas that Mankel scholars and all of us obviously believe in. FreedomWorks is, as Andrew said, based in Washington DC, the heart of US politics, probably the heart of global politics. A thoroughly impressive city, especially for someone like me who's very much interested in politics. The organisation has about 1.2 or 1.3 million members. So it has an extremely fertile audience, a huge audience, and so it makes it a very effective mouthpiece for people who want to promote the ideas that, of course, as I said, we all believe in. I might just mention some of the methods that are used in FreedomWorks in terms of online communication. They are extremely sophisticated at targeting advertising to people who believe in certain things. So one instance is Facebook. We all know that Facebook is about people sharing with other people what they believe in and what they do. Now, FreedomWorks is very effective at targeting people's beliefs and people's activities and turning that into advertisements that then encourage those people to become actively engaged in the battle of ideas in the United States. So that was extremely impressive. I've already been able to adapt some of the ideas that I've learnt through that process with organisations I'm involved in Perth, and I look forward to sharing some of them with other people around the nation as well. I had the great privilege of travelling to New York with Andrew, and Ron was also there at an Atlas Freedom dinner, and had the distinct pleasure of hearing Mario Losa, a Nobel laureate, speak. You know, a unique pleasure and something that will stay with me forever. It was interesting to hear Tim talk about his troubles walking to work. My apartment was right next to the subway station, so I didn't have to walk to work. I would only walk to work if I thought, when I stepped out the front, I would turn left to go to the train station and turn right to walk, and I would stop and think, how awful was the food I ate yesterday? If I ate too many hamburgers, I'd turn right and walk. If I behaved myself, I'd jump on the train and catch the train to work. I also had some pretty unique experiences speaking to activists and people who were promoting all the ideas and the campaigns that FreedomWorks were associated with on the phone. For 1 week, I made 1,000 phone calls to activists in Ohio. The issue that we were promoting was we were trying to stop the state government in Ohio allowing public employees to collectively bargain. A noble pursuit. Unfortunately, the ballot failed. I had some interesting responses from people on the phone. Of course, my accent was a pretty significant hurdle. Also, some unionists managed to find their way onto the list, so I was abused a few times. But that was all part of the character building exercise that was the internship. It was a magnificent time. I learned a tremendous amount. I hope to be able to contribute back to the debates that go on in Australia and influence public opinion and move all of those magnificent ideas that Mancal promotes in the coming years. And as Hannah and Tim both said, I'm very grateful to Andrew and to Ron and the entire Mancal team for everything they did in helping me get there. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. Fantastic, fantastic. Friends, one of the most, what's this? One of the most difficult questions I'm often asked is, Ron, what are you doing these days? And if Jenny's with me at the time, I can see her, she seizes up because she's ready for one of these long, boring diatribes to talk about my favourite economist, F.A. Hayek, and the values of human freedom and liberty, and she watches as the listeners' eyes glaze over as they talk about the battle of ideas. But not tonight. Not tonight. No glazed eyes, because tonight you saw what we do. We didn't have to explain it, you saw. And what we do is really simpler than all that. All we do is provide a rallying point for where individuals can exchange ideas about the values and principles that underpin this wonderful free society that we still have hanging by a hair's thread. Now, we discuss these ideas that have made the society so successful and so civil, and we wonder why most of the political ruling class, except some notable exceptions here tonight, haven't got the slightest clue about enterprise and prosperity going hand in hand. To us it seems obvious, but to them it's not. We believe that people improve their lives not through government regulation, but just by being free to make choices for themselves without interference. So that's as simple as that. This is Mankell's 15th year of just doing this simple thing. And as Andrew says, we've sent 500 young people like Hannah and Tim and Tom that you met tonight, and the room's also full of other young people that have been on previous occasions. Wonderful people, give me great confidence in the future. But our aim is to make it 1,000 students by 2015. But quantity is not really the measure of success. It's quality that counts. Now, how did our 3 young people rank for quality tonight? What about a resounding, thundering... conclude the evening without thanking 2 other groups, and of course Andrew's mentioned all our wonderful Mankell team, and they just make me feel as though I'm the luckiest guy in the world. Thank you. And the other group, they deserve applause, and Jenny's in the team. And the other group is all the rest of you, all your supporters, because through your support and encouragement, we're getting somewhere. We value your support and comments more than you'll ever know. Because just for us to do the same thing, same old thing, again and again, over and over, wouldn't achieve anything. We've just got to be better at it. And it's your suggestions that will make us better at what we're doing. So thank you. And all in all, I think we should applaud. We make a good team. All together we make a hell of a good team. So thank you very much. And let's enjoy each other's company till they throw us out at 7:30. Thank you, Andrew. Fantastic, fantastic. Friends, one of the most, what's this? One of the most difficult questions I'm often asked is, Ron, what are you doing these days? And if Jenny's with me at the time, I can see her, she seizes up because she's ready for one of these long, boring diatribes to talk about my favourite economist, F.A. Hayek, and the values of human freedom and liberty, and she watches as the listeners' eyes glaze over as they talk about the battle of ideas. But not tonight. Not tonight. No glazed eyes, because tonight you saw what we do. We didn't have to explain it, you saw. And what we do is really simpler than all that. All we do is provide a rallying point for where individuals can exchange ideas about the values and principles that underpin this wonderful free society that we still have hanging by a hair's thread. Now, we discuss these ideas that have made the society so successful and so civil, and we wonder why most of the political ruling class, except some notable exceptions here tonight, haven't got the slightest clue about enterprise and prosperity going hand in hand. To us it seems obvious, but to them it's not. We believe that people improve their lives not through government regulation, but just by being free to make choices for themselves without interference. So that's as simple as that.